So we're going to go to the phones. We're going to have Jordan Hill from the Auburn Opelika News. Jordan, you there?
Yeah, Rick, how's it going?
Good, bud. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. Getting ready for another road trip.
Yeah, I hear you riding up to Fayetteville. Early kickoff Saturday.
Oh
Little,
yeah, oh yeah.
little breakfast and football. And we were talking about that a little bit earlier with Auburn going another early in the morning, the importance for Auburn to get off to a fast start. Is that how you're looking at it?
Oh, for sure. And I think especially, I mean, you want to start fast no matter what, but given the circumstances, I mean, this Arkansas team's coming off a 51-point game. And on the whole, other than that Georgia game where they didn't score at all, I mean, this Arkansas team's been pretty productive as an offense. So, yeah, I think given the circumstances, given you're coming off of playing Georgia and only finding the end zone once, I think it'd be big, especially too. Sam Pittman, Arkansas's coach, is really trying to hype up the fans. I know he's been talking about he wants it to be loud, even though it's an 11 o'clock game. So if you can start fast, that's one way to get an opposing fan base to be a little bit quieter than maybe the head coach wants.
Yeah, I mean, I think Arkansas found that out firsthand when they came to Sanford Stadium a few weeks ago. But for Auburn, what do you see with this whole quarterback situation? We saw Georgia State T.J. Finley come off the bench, and since then we saw him for one drive or one series against LSU. Then we saw him in garbage time against Georgia. Do you think that could change this weekend?
No, I think really the way Bo Nix played against LSU, I think he kind of cemented the job. And when you look at that Georgia State game, I think you've got to give TJ a ton of credit for what he was able to produce, what he was able to manufacture. But I think it was sort of a situation with that Georgia State game that Brian Harson just felt like there needed to be a spark. And I think that going into the next week, all eyes were on both those quarterbacks. And quite frankly, Bo had probably the best full game of his career. I mean, from start to finish in that LSU game. So I think right now it's Bo's job. I think that he's got a good handle on it. I think if you look last week at what wasn't working in that Georgia game, I'm sure that there were a few throws that you could pin on Bo. But I feel like on the whole, it was just a real disappointing showing from the receiving core. I mean, there was at least 7 drops, or may have been more, and just a few of those in just really crucial situations where if you're going to hang with a team like Georgia, if you're going to have a chance at pulling a big upset, you have to make those plays. I mean, you only get so much of a margin of error when you're playing teams of that caliber, especially when you play a defense of that caliber. And Auburn didn't make them. And I feel like, again, most of those were really more on the receivers than Bo. But yeah, I think Bo's kind of got a handle on this job. And unless he has a really rough game and gets into another situation like that Georgia State game where the fate of Auburn having a chance to win is really in the balance. I have a feeling it's going to be Bo's job, and I think he's got a pretty good handle on it going forward.
Yeah, now speaking about the wide receivers, you think it's just more of a youth to that group? We losing a few wide receivers from last season. I talked about Eli Stove and Seth Williams, and just losing a lot of that experience. You think it's the youth, or we saw one wide receivers coach already get fired? Do you think there's something a little deeper to it?
Well, I think at this point you got to sort of wonder just about the quality of the receivers. I mean, because you're right. I mean, this is a very inexperienced group coming into the year. As far as playing time is concerned, really the guys that were the most experienced were Kobe Hudson and Xavion Capers, and those were two rising sophomores. So that sort of speaks to the inexperience. But I mean, at this point, we are halfway through the season. There has been plenty of opportunities for all these guys to kind of rise to the occasion. And you look at the situation. Yes, they had a lot of inexperience, but that's sort of the nature of playing college football, especially playing in the SEC. You got to have guys that are ready to step up. And truthfully, at receiver, I think other than Kobe Hudson, it would be very hard to make an argument that anyone has stood out or really risen to the occasion. There's been flashes. Shedrick Jackson's had flashes. Demetrius Robertson, but just haven't they've lacked that consistency. So for me at this point, I think it goes beyond inexperience, and I think fair, to be fair, because I was critical of Brian Harsin making that move and firing Cornelius Williams so early in the year, but you're getting a good glimpse of why Harsin felt like the decision needed to be made. I mean, There hasn't been really consistent play from the receivers. There hasn't been the kind of play that you would expect, especially at this level. So yeah, I mean, I think at this point it's hard to argue. While they came into the year with very little experience, some of those guys, were pretty well thought of as far as recruits when they came to Auburn. And then other than like Kobe Hudson, it's really hard to say that some of those guys have really lived up to what's expected of a group that has talent and still needs people to step up to keep the passing game in the mix.
Yeah, now lucky for those guys, you still got 6 games to go to kind of turn it around and kind of get a little bit of momentum going, especially the younger guys into the offseason. I personally expect Demetrius Robertson to have a bigger second half of the season. I think just settling in. But, we're 6 games in already, how fast it's going. And, Auburn has an opportunity to jump up to 5-2 in a year that I don't know how many people was expecting that, especially with the schedule early on. So, I mean, if you think if Auburn can go into Fayetteville, get the win, and, go into the bye week 5-2, how much momentum do you think that would be?
I think it'd be huge, and I think that you make a good point. To me, when you look at this game, I feel like it's really a pivot point in this season. If you are able to go into Fayetteville, and I think this is a pretty good Arkansas team. I mean, this is an Arkansas team that may wind up with 8, 9 wins when it's all said and done. They still got a few challenges left on that schedule, but if you're able to go in there, get a big road win, especially if you get your running game playing well again, they've kind of had a few lackluster games in a row. I think that'd be huge because you go into the bye week, you get ready. I really feel like this bye week is timed well in that you're coming out of the bye week to play Ole Miss, and I think it's a really dangerous Ole Miss team. But you look at if you win this Arkansas game, you play Ole Miss, you play Texas A&M, who it's coming off that Alabama win, but I wouldn't say is unbeatable. And Auburn's had pretty good luck over the years at Kyle Field. Play Mississippi State, which I think is a winnable game, play at South Carolina, which I think is a winnable game, and then you got the Iron Bowl, which is going to be a big challenge. But you do get it at home, so that's going to help a bit. So yeah, I think that this is a huge opportunity. I don't think by any means is this a guaranteed win for Auburn playing Arkansas, but I think they should be in the mix. I think they very well have a chance to win this game, and I know for sure going into a bye week that if you're going in 5-2 rather than 4-3, you'd have to think people are feeling better within the program and feeling excited about what the second half of the season can really hold in store.
Yeah, and Auburn's had some, here you think since Penn State, every game has been just a dogfight. I mean, even the Georgia State game obviously was a lot more than you expected it to be. Then the LSU game ended the way it did, and it's a close game. The Georgia game was a physical game, and you got to believe this Arkansas game. But the one question I keep getting from people and is there something going on you believe with Tank Bigsby on you don't see him getting the carries you would expect him to be getting?
Yeah, I've been kind of surprised, and we asked Brian Harson after the LSU game because there were some key drives even before the fourth quarter drive that wound up deciding the game when Jarquez Hunter scored. But Brian Harson said that he was fine, so maybe it was just more of a matter of being a little banged up. When you're running the ball like Tank is, he's gonna take shots, he's gonna take hits. So I think it's a fair question, and he hasn't played to what we thought he could be. I think it was not crazy to think he could at least be mentioned as a Heisman contender because of how well he played last year. And it's just sort of not been there. I mean, luckily for Auburn, Jarquez Hunter has risen to the challenge and, was going into that Georgia game, he was leading the nation in yards per carry. But yeah, I mean, from what we know, Tank's fine. But I mean, I think it's fair to at least wonder if he's at least a little bit banged up, maybe not quite 100%. But this is a big opportunity. This Arkansas run defense has been very poor this year. I think they gave up like 326 rushing yards to Ole Miss last week. So if Tank can't get going in this game, I think it's fair to kind of wonder what the situation is there.
Yeah, and I'm watching Bobo when he was at Georgia, and I know you saw that, the 2014, 2013 type Bobo calling how much he ran the ball when he had, Chubb and Michelle Gurley that year and even before that. But you're looking at Arkansas, the way they keep 8 usually playing that umbrella defense with Barry Odom, you got to think if Bobo is going to open up that running game and if Tank is well enough to play, this is going to be the weekend that they just pound the ball. We saw Ole Miss run it, at will up the middle. We saw Georgia just pound the ball up the middle against Arkansas. So I mean, are you thinking this is Bobo's coming out? What they say at Georgia, run the dang ball all the time. You think this is the
Yeah.
weekend you see that?
I think so, and that's really been what I sort of expected from the jump, and we really haven't gotten a ton of that. I mean, because not only with Bobo's background, I mean, we heard it, in the lead up to the season, talking about wanting to be downhill, physical, really pounding the ball, and again, like you said, that was sort of his MO at Georgia, and there's been a little bit of that, but it seems like since that LSU game where it was clear that they were gonna just let Bo create and let him do what he could, that they've really just sort of not ran, definitely, I should say, as much as I would expect. I mean, you saw that in the Georgia game. We knew that trying to run on that Georgia defense was going to be tough, and Auburn, I think they ran for like 1.6 yards per carry. But even in some of those big situations, there wasn't a ton of running. The one touchdown they scored, they only had one carry in the red zone, and that was the run that Tank scored on. I think it was like an 8-yard touchdown run, something like that. So yeah, I mean, I think this is a golden opportunity, and I think that they need to take advantage of it. I feel like this offense is going to be at its best when Tank's running and taking, maybe around 20 carries, and you get Jarquez maybe 10 or 12, something like that. And then you kind of use that to sort of open up the passing game. And you can also implement, Bo's running ability. I think you don't want to run him a ton, but some design runs and some option plays with Tank, I think, can be really effective. And then it might even open up the passing game with play action and things like that. So yeah, if we come out of this game and we're still kind of wondering about the running game and sort of the way Bobo's sort of attacking defenses, it's going to be a question that's going to linger throughout the rest of the year if they're not able to do it effectively against Arkansas.
Yeah, I think if we don't see Tank carrying the ball a lot, it's obviously something's going to be going on. Let's flip it over to the other side of the ball. We saw, with Ole Miss, well, we didn't see any defense, but when Georgia was able to contain KJ Jefferson, do you, see Auburn being able to get that same pressure on KJ and kind of containing him into the pocket?
I think they've got a good chance, and I think it's going to be crucial to stopping the Arkansas offense. I've been pleasantly surprised with how, for the most part, Auburn's edge rushers have played without TD Moultrie. TD, who had been one of the better kind of breakout defenders to start the year, but Eku Leota has played great, and Derek Hall has followed up some good showings. He played well against LSU and did pretty well against Georgia as well. I mean, I think that's huge. They cannot afford to let KJ Jefferson pick them apart, and the fact that he can run and is such a physical runner, is definitely a concern as well. But yeah, I think if they get in a situation that looks anything like that Penn State game when Sean Clifford just kind of stood back there and picked them apart, then it's going to be a long day in Fayetteville. But that, to me, the two keys to this game are Auburn being able to run the ball and then just getting pressure on KJ, because if they give him a lot of time with some of the playmakers he has, like Treylon Burks at receiver, this defense is going to be in trouble. And again, this is a capable Arkansas team, and you want to try to limit the amount of times they have a chance to attack you downfield, because if they get the opportunity, they're probably going to make you pay.
Yeah, I agree. Now, before I get you out of here, I'm just going to ask you. I know Braves start NLCS Saturday night. You'll be on your way home probably by then, I imagine, with the early game. Now, is your girlfriend the Dodgers fan?
She is, yeah. She's a big Dodgers fan. So this is a weird situation tonight for sure, because it's like I want her to be happy, but if the Giants win, and I feel better about the Braves' chances against the Giants, so it's definitely mixed emotions.
Yeah, I was talking earlier. You look at the Giants. Granted, Braves got to go out west, but you get Max Fried against Kevin Gossman. And then if you get the Dodgers, it'll be Max Fried against Max Scherzer in Game 1. So obviously, I'd rather play the Giants. I don't want to play that. It's easy to say if I knew the Braves were going to win, I'd say let's go play the Dodgers. If I knew the Braves would win the series, but I think it's like anybody saying they want to play Alabama in the national championship game. You don't really want that if you don't know who's going to be winning it. So
yeah, be careful what you wish for.
exactly. I'd rather the Braves play the Giants. I feel like we'd have a better shot with that. Well, I appreciate you calling in, Jordan, and be safe traveling up to Fayetteville.
Appreciate it, Rick. Anytime.
All right, buddy.